I remain Odebiyi from Ogun West. Mr. President, let me first of all commend the President for the timely presentation of the budget proposal. And also let me thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership in guiding this Senate to pass the MTEF expeditiously, and also guiding us to make sure that we revert back to the budget cycle from January to December. Mr. President, permit me to also congratulate my colleagues who have contributed eloquently to this debate. Mr. President, going by the budget proposal, let me first of all say that a budget of 10.3 trillion for the size of our economy and population is not particularly worrisome. I think the budget is in line. For the size of this economy. As a matter of fact, if revenue was not an issue, I think it's something that we can even, despite all the challenges we have, it's something that could have even gone higher. But going by the assumptions, Mr. President, I'd like to pick out some few things. I think oil price at 57 is ideal, even looking by the statement that was made out by the finance minister today that oil prices have dropped because of the glut. I think that's agreeable. I think if you look at the output, 2.18, I did a cursory look at what has happened over the last 3, 4, 5 years. I think we've always run a negative variance about in our production target, about 40% negative variance in terms of what we budgeted and what we actual. So we just have to make sure that we achieve this target. Also looking at the 305 that is being used, I think we are cutting ourselves short here. I think we need to rebase that 305 because I think if you use the 360, which is the actual value, I think the government can also realize some income from there. The 2.98% GDP, I think is a bit optimistic. I think if you also look at the global economy, I think only recently, I think the World Bank even downgraded the expected GDP of Nigeria to be about 2%, and I think they believe that the global economy is slowing down and commodity prices are falling. So these are some assumptions that we have used, which I believe that we need to be very careful. We could fall short of these revenue projections and could further make our situations unattainable. But I'm looking at the overall spread of the budget. One of the things that caught my eye, Mr. President, is that if you look at the non-debt recurring expenditure and you look at our debt service, added together, that makes about 70% of the whole 10.3, leaving us less than only 3% for capital expenditure. For a country that it's estimated we have 98 million people in poverty, about 45 or 35 people are unemployed. We are growing at a rate of 2.7% growth rate. So when you look at a huge deficit capital, when you look at what we are spending in terms of capital expenditure, is very, very, very small in order to get us out of this poverty. One of the things that going into expenditure, one of the areas that I feel that the government needs to seriously start looking at is in the area of capital projects. I honestly believe that government needs to start looking at liberalizing that market and bringing more of the private sector in to assist. Because if you look at the quantum of capital projects that needs to be handled or done now, it's very huge, and I'm not sure the federal government itself can do that. I don't see why the federal government should be involved in rail, for instance. I think that could have been opened up and to get investors to come in and do the rail for us. If you remember, even in America in the early days, the Rockefellers were the ones that started the rail. I think even some of the roads are some of the areas that also we can look at. But going into the revenue area, I think the VAT of 7.5, on the look of it, doesn't seem excessive. But my concern is that in a shrinking economy, when you are tightening, when you are increasing, then you're supposed to be infusing more money and reducing taxes to ginger the economy. We are going to be raising taxes, and also we don't have enough money that we are spending to stimulate the economy. That's an area that I'm also concerned about. I think the marine sector, there's a lot of money that can still be made in the marine sector. I think the production sharing contract is still an area that we've just passed this morning. I think stamp duty is an area that we also talked about that we need to focus on for revenue. Subsidy, if you look at from 2006 till now, we spent close to 10 trillion naira on subsidy. That's an area that we need to reduce to make sure to put that money into more productive sectors of the economy. And I still believe that the government needs to do some kind of asset re-engineering. I think there's still a lot of federal government assets that are wasting, that we need to shrink and get more revenue. So there's still quite a lot of things here, but Mr. President, because of time, I yield the floor.
Thank you very much. Senator Barinada Mpigi.